Hey everyone, welcome to Knox Makers Show and Share, the special Thanksgiving week edition, where we only have 2 shares tonight. First up, we have Russell, who's bringing a lamp, I think. He didn't actually tell me, I just wrote down lamp, so we'll see.
A good guess. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, no, probably not. Although one night I did bring a toilet paper holder.
Which was also a lamp.
Which was also a lamp, yes. That is true. It'll take me a second here to get ready. Billy will be glad to know that we have adjusted the toilet paper holder so it doesn't fall off the wall anymore. This is a light bulb that screws into here, and it plugs in here, and we hope it doesn't go pow. I've done that before. Wow, that's bright. So, it is a lamp, and I started with a cigar box and mounted a, this little platform here used to have a glass dome on it. I guess you put, I don't know, something in it. I did some brass work. I have a new die tool, which I wish Billy had told me had existed. He may not even know. It helps you do straight threads. It's got an extension on it that goes down over your rod, and that way it doesn't make your threads go sideways, which I've done a lot of. This one is really pretty basic. I mean, there's not a lot to it. Railroad insulator, random brass parts, socket. I put a 3-way switch on this one instead of a dimmer, so you can turn this on, turn them both on or off. And here's the innards. I mean, like I say, not much to this one. Just wire the switch in, little LED transformer. That's all there is to it. So I'm glad I had at least a little something to show since there's only 2 of us tonight. Questions? Fret time, okay. Not much fret time on this one. I got pieces, started putting them together, and it turned into a lamp. Very little planning. So I probably didn't fret more than 10 minutes. Total build time, maybe 4 or 5 hours. Very short. Brian.
Is that a Hemingway insulator?
It is a Hemingway insulator. Yes, I do. It's a 17.
What does that mean?
Hemingway is the manufacturer of the insulators. They come in all shapes and sizes, and they all have a different number. They manufactured most of them for. A lot of them were used on railroad for the telegraph lines, but they're also used for phone lines and all kinds of other stuff.
Do you get those online?
I get those at estate sales, junk shops. People send them to me, just here, there, and yonder. But mostly estate sales and junk shops at antique stores. One more question.
Yeah, thoughts on what you can do for a shade or a finial or anything like that?
Say that again?
Well, I said thoughts on what you're going to do for like a lamp shade for that, or like a finial?
Probably not on this one. Sometimes I do. This type of lamp, a lot of times I'll get a shade that will just clip down over the bulb, so that way you can use it with the bare Edison bulb, or if you want a shade, you can just plop it right on top. But I do them both ways. And this is actually what's called an Uno socket. This screws off, and you can put a shade on it that has the big hole on it here, and then screw it back on. So it's ready for that type of shade anyway, if somebody wants to do that. All righty then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Tracy. Take my barbecue box.
Next on the list, we have Jennifer with art update.
Two canvases. One of them I'm not happy with. Probably going to paint over it. I was in a lot of pain when I painted it, so I'm not real happy with the way it came out. So I'm probably going to paint over this one and start over. As many of you know, I was a nurse for many years, worked labor and delivery for about 5 months, and it had a very profound effect on me. This one is kind of a babies in the womb sort of thing, but it's also kind of an outer space sort of thing. So it's a compilation of where that has gone with me. Any questions? They are still in acrylic, yes.
I'm curious, why don't you like the first one? You can feel the intensity in the hand.
I don't know. It just didn't, it just doesn't, it doesn't speak to me. It might speak to someone else. So if anyone wants it, they can have it. I don't sell my stuff, so if it speaks to anyone, let me know. Anything else? No? Okay.
I have 2 more show and shares since we started tonight. Next up, we have Brian, who's showing a clock that was just made tonight.
It is running. Danny brought this in last Tuesday, and he asked me, he goes, you know, this clock doesn't work, but I really like the way it's a big old starburst clock. He says, I really like the clock. He goes, think we put electrical, mechanism in there? I'm like, yeah, sure. I said, let me look at it. And I took the back cover off of it, and the more I looked at it, I'm like, oh man, I really want to take this thing apart. I said, no, it doesn't work, and I can't do it any harm, right? It's broken. The mainspring was all big and bulging. It was like touching the housing, actually. So I wound up trying to wind that up a little bit. Still, it just nothing worked. So I took that mainspring completely off, degreased it, would use a little brake cleaner, which is mostly toluene, and degreased it all, and then put it back and then wound it all right back up nice and tight like it is now. And it still didn't run. I'm like, well, all right. So I did a little more research, a little more Google foo, and started learning more about how that they're oiled and maintained, and I'm sure this clock never saw a drop of oil since it was made. So after all of that fretting, we're like, all right, wait till next week. We'll tackle it again next Tuesday. In the meantime, I bought some clock oil. Of course, there's a specialty oil involved, right? And it didn't have a key, so I now have like every key you could ever want for winding clocks in case this ever happens again. So today, took it, and then I proceeded to strategically try to drop oil in every little crevice it's got. It's funny, the brass has a little tiny bit of a divot. You can't see it with the naked eye, but there is a little divot in there, and all of the rods will be steel, which makes the brass pretty much a bushing. And you put one drop of oil in each one, and it holds it in there. If you put more than that, sometimes it can leak out, hence it doesn't do you much good. So armed with that knowledge, I tried that, and I'm like, this oil didn't seem like it's doing anything, and then I put more oil, and I just made sure everything got a fairly liberal amount to go with. And then I just started working the mechanism a little bit, and you could tell it tried to run, it wanted to run. And so the more it got worked in, the more it would start to run a little bit more. And then finally it just took off. I'm like, all right. So now the plan is to let it run throughout all our show and share. I think if this thing runs for an hour or two, everything will have turned a little bit enough to make all the mechanism probably be oiled and work. At that point, it could be put back together. This little lever here makes it faster or slower, so it'll have to be readjusted. We've played with that a lot. And it'll be ready to be back to being a normal clock, which it's got a neat little face. It's an 8-day movement, so you wind it up and it's good for 8 days, which is kind of cool.
Any idea when it was made?
Probably in the mid to late 50s, possibly even early 60s, but I think probably mid to late 50s. That's when all those starburst clocks were very popular. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, do you use any kind of specialized tools on it, or?
Well, other than the clock winding wrench, the clock key. No, I just used what I could find out there. It was just a couple of nuts, and there's no special spanners or anything like that.
How long you reckon it'll, once you wind it, how long you think it'll probably run, 24 hours?
8 days.
8 days?
It's an eight-day clock.
Oh, 8 days?
Yeah. And evidently, the whole theory about, you can wind a clock too much and it tears it up, that's BS. You can't overwind a clock. You can only wind it as tight as it'll go and it's done. There's still a mainspring and it's still going to work. So I don't know how that ever got started, but that's not true. Yes?
How much clock work have you done?
Probably about 2 hours now. Yeah. I will. I've got a Big Ben alarm clock from probably the 40s at home, which is my wind-up backup in case power goes out. I will probably oil that now, and maybe keep my eyes open for another broken clock. Anything else?
You're our new expert.
All right.
We're going to make you the clock czar. Last up, we have Keith with some nesting trays.
So before I break them out, just some introduction. I wanted to make a gift for my son who just got married and wanted to do something, that he'd be able to, it was useful, right? So it wasn't just decorative. It wasn't just something that, would come and go. So I actually saw this, and let me see if I can. This is a guy named Michael Alm, who does some neat work on YouTube, and he's kind of known for taking Baltic birch plywood and sectioning it up and actually using the plies and kind of like chevrons and things. So it's really kind of cool. He did these nesting trays out of Baltic birch, and it's kind of the genesis of the idea. And wanted to do, that's great. It was a good design. I actually kind of like the way that some of the pieces go together. So the way it's kind of structured is kind of have the three, let me back it off a little bit, kind of three trays that all nest within each other, and they kind of made so that when the handle of one comes down, it overlays completely with the handle of the succeeding one. So kind of a great design element, but unfortunately I found out, so I started working in creating something based on that, not with plywood, but within solid wood. And the first thing I did was actually one of these maple pieces, literally the first dovetail I was chopping out with a chisel, I broke it right here. It was good that it was the first one, rather than, getting all the way through. And I really realized that there's a lot of, cross grain here that's very short, that's only like an inch, right? And in particular with the outer one, there's a big lever arm here that, you'd be willing, you'd naturally come in and want to pick it up from there, and it wouldn't be all that sturdy. So evolved the design, and there was a lot of design work here. First of all, they moved up to Seattle, so I wanted to do something of a Pacific Northwest theme, a little bit more, I want to say organic. What Michael did was great. The joints were called finger joints. They're kind of, very solid, square joints that go together like this. And to me, that's kind of in the right use. That's great. For this, I thought it was a little bit too industrial, so we tried to do other sorts of joints, including experimented a little bit with heart-shaped dovetails because of the whole wedding thing, but we thought, maybe that's a little bit too schmaltzy. So, so the way the way I resolved all this was decided to make hand-cut dovetails for the trays, and each tray has some inlay. So you can probably see, right? So this is a pine tree. And this, I don't know whether you can see this, this is an eagle, right? And then a salmon. Yeah, so I ended up almost building each one of these 3 times. So as I mentioned, the first time, so we talk about fails here, and this is a series of small fails that turned into a success. So so I mentioned the cracked handle, and another tray. This is really one of the first times I've done some hand-cut dovetails, and in particular with maple, there's a very small window between, a sloppy joint and something being so tight that it splits the wood when you put it together. So, it took a lot of iteration to get that right. And then another one, I just screwed up a dovetail, right? And that happens to everyone. So it really took a lot of effort to to get it all together. Anyway, I'm not going to pass these around, but we will hang out outside after the show and share if you want to take a closer look. It's kind of a hard thing to between the overhead and yes.
Are those your inlays? Are those hand cut?
So they are. I use something actually called a shaper origin, which is kind of a halfway between a. It's kind of like a smart router, or in another way you could think of it almost as a handheld CNC machine. Let me show you. My wife snuck in one time when I was in the shop and took a picture. So let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Okay, so let's see that. So it's basically a router. You see there's a little screen on top, and it works from an SVG file, and you can actually trace the SVG file, and it will kind of correct for. If anyone's tried to do this with a router, you know they can be a little tough to control, right? So this actually has servos in there that will compensate, and actually you can trace within those SVGs within like 1/1000th of an inch, and you can set the offsets to make sure that the inlay fits exactly. So yeah, it's I took a course with Brian here at the inlay course, and I highly recommend it to folks if and when he has it again. But there's no way that I could have done this with, that level of expertise, at least that I have, using his technique.
When you're bringing it in.
Pardon?
When you're bringing it in.
We can do that. Yeah.
Question. Are you freehanding
I'm sorry.
this and the machine is correcting it?
Yes. Yeah.
You get close and cut servos that move the router head to adjust for places you're off.
Yeah, up to maybe a 1/4 inch or so. Yeah.
How long did it take you?
I've been working on this, I think, since April. Yeah. Yeah, it takes a long time with you. You do everything 3 times, so. Yeah. So, but I really like the way it turned out, so I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
You wanted to be very mechanically on point for your friends in the Pacific Northwest. You could say, cut the skirt.
It is. It is, yeah. All right, other questions?
So is all the wood, you said, the handles or the sides are maple, but is it?
So what I tried to do, in the small one, it's maple, and the inlay's maple, and the background is called wavy sapel, which is kind of an African mahogany. And then for the next one up, the handles are the sapel, not the wavy, but just the plain grain with kind of a crotch-grained walnut, and that's also mahogany. And then I went to walnut handles, and so you kind of see the progression, walnut handles, and then the background is called black limba, which is I think it's becoming more common now. They use it fairly regularly with like solid body guitars. Yeah.
These woods from Jeffrey's Woodworks.
Yeah, yeah. Spent a lot of money there. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah, yeah. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
So that's all we have for show and shares tonight. We have a couple classes coming up. Everyone's trying to get in before the end of the year. This weekend, Sunday is a Woodworking 101, and Monday is also a Woodworking 101. I think those just got posted today. So if you are looking for authorization in the wood area, this is the class for you. Sign up. Next Tuesday is a new member onboarding. So if you're interested in becoming a member of Knox Makers, you're required to go to this, and we'll tell you more about the organization and how you can join up and become a member. We try and have those about twice a month, but the next one is next Tuesday. And then at the very beginning of December, next Thursday, is it next week Thursday? Yeah, next Thursday is Machining 100, the authorization class for the machining area. And on Saturday, the 3rd of December, is the Milling 101 class. So you can find those classes at knoxmakers.org/events. As far as announcements, we need someone to take the trash out. If someone volunteer to do the trash. All of you together. I don't think the air conditioner filter needs changing. This one doesn't. I didn't look at the top one, so if anyone wants to just take a peek at it. And the other announcement, if anyone would like a advanced course in laser maintenance, after this, John Dale is going to clean the lenses and do some other work on the laser, and he's invited anyone who wants to observe, so you can learn how to fix it if you or upkeep it. So if you're working on a long job and you feel like it's not cutting well enough, maybe the lenses need cleaning, then you'll know how to do it. That is all I have for announcements. So everyone have a nice Thanksgiving. If you're new and would like a tour, you can talk to me or someone else with a badge. And otherwise, have fun. Thanks.